We turn now to one of the few consistent stances from Donald Trump since entering the political world.
Do you make the same commitment that you will absolutely, sir, that you will absolutely accept the result of this election?
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time.
Can you give a direct answer? You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no, and I didn't last time either.
Will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely.
Will you trust the results of the midterms if Republicans lose control of Congress?
I will, if the elections are honest.
Rather than abide by Democratic norms with an unconditional commitment to accept election results, Trump has framed acceptance in terms of his judgment about election integrity. And with 9 months until the midterm elections, election administrators and legal experts are already sounding alarm bells that Trump is laying the groundwork to interfere and contest yet another set of election results, especially those that are predicted to not be in his party's favor. It explains why we saw the FBI raid election offices in Fulton County, Georgia, with Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard on hand, why the Justice Department is suing states that refuse to turn over voter data, and why Trump is repeatedly threatening to have Republicans nationalize voting. Joining us now, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He is a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Coons, welcome back to the weekend. Just on this issue of nationalizing elections, please explain to the American people exactly why that is unconstitutional.
Well, the Constitution, Jonathan, provides that states will set the terms and conditions of the elections for federal offices and, of course, control their state and local elections. There is a role for Congress in terms of some of the other parts of the timing, but states run elections. And as someone who was a county official for a decade, I'll tell you that one of the real strengths of our system of elections is that they really are principally run by county boards of elections all over our country. So one president or one party can't control or rig elections nationwide, as has happened in other countries. You just gave us a review of how President Trump has, since he was first a candidate in 2016, refused to accept election results he doesn't like. And he is obsessively relitigating the 2020 elections that he lost. Having Tulsi Gabbard, his Director of National Intelligence, show up when the FBI raided a Fulton County election facility is a grim and concerning sign. And Steve Bannon, his longtime advisor and I would say spirit animal, said the quiet part out loud when he threatened to have ICE agents surround polling places. Now, for more than a century, we've had laws on the books saying you cannot intimidate folks coming out for elections. It's important that Democrats take this seriously, mobilize, and engage in advance of our elections, make sure they are free and fair, but also make sure that we are not intimidated, that we show up, that we vote, that we use the power of our voice and our vote to make change in our country.
What does taking it seriously look like for Democrats? Because for governors and secretaries of state, there are actual things that they can do to make sure that their elections are safeguarded from the federal government, which is a weird sentence to even say out loud. But for members of Congress, for those of you that are here in this building behind me, what are you all doing? What is the plan? What is the support that you're willing to give these governors and secretaries of state? What are the, warnings you're willing to put on the table for the Trump administration when you're telling them don't do this in 2026 because if we win, we're doing X, Y, and Z? What's that look like?
Well, first, Eugene, just to look backwards for a moment, a bipartisan group of us worked hard after the 2020 election and fixed some of the unresolved issues or flaws in our election laws that led to the storming of the Capitol on January 6th at President Trump's direction. The idea that we could overturn an election on the night of the counting of the electoral votes. Second, we have to stay in regular contact, as I do. with our governors, with our secretaries of state, with our boards of elections. Third, we have to make sure the American people realize there is an organized campaign underway. I'll remind you, Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, had been pressing for the release of voter rolls. They will claim what they're doing is purging the voter rolls of illegal aliens. There is very, very little evidence at all of voter fraud. Out of millions of votes cast in the last several elections, there have been just a handful of cases across our whole country. And folks who oppose free and fair elections routinely repeat unbased, untruthful allegations that Democrats rely on the votes of those who are here illegally. That is not true. So we need to resist efforts to hand over voting rolls. We need to make sure that the machinery of local elections are kept safe and secure and appropriately funded. And frankly, more than anything, we need to come out with a positive agenda for what we will do if we're able to take back the House and the Senate and eventually in 2028 the White House. We need to raise the alarms about what Trump and his allies are doing, but we also need to let the American people know we're the ones who are working to reduce the cost of housing and groceries. We're the ones who will fight to raise wages and create better jobs. We are the ones who are going to actually deliver on the broken promises of the Trump administration. Last month, 100,000 people were laid off, the most in 25 years. The Trump economy, as you were just reporting, has taken a sour turn, and Democrats need to give people hopeful and positive reasons to come out and vote for us, not just to vote against Trump.
Senator, before we get to your op-ed about Congress fighting back against American isolationism, I want to quickly ask you about the other piece of news that lawmakers have been caught up with on Capitol Hill, which is, just to catch our viewers up, about a whistleblower report that involved intelligence about Trump making contact with two foreign nationals, about a person close to Trump making contact. Intelligence intercepted a call between two foreign nationals discussing a person close to President Trump. It's not clear what country the two foreign nationals were from. The discussion involved Iran. The whistleblower report was drafted last May, around the time the Trump administration was deliberating about a strike on Iran. Trump ordered a military attack on Iranian nuclear facilities in June. There's obviously a lot left to the imagination about what we need to know about this whistleblower report and what we do know, but I'm wondering if you can talk us through next steps. Is this whistleblower going to appear before members on the Senate Judiciary Committee, either in a SCIF or in some capacity?
I really can't give you any more details on this subject. I will tell you the other thing that the weekend has been taken up by is attempts at negotiating reasonable constraints on ICE, making sure that federal law enforcement, folks from Border Patrol and ICE who've been involved in Minneapolis in the two tragic killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, are following the same standards of state and local law enforcement. Body cameras on, masks off, using a judicial warrant if they try to get into someone's home, following the Fourth Amendment, no roving patrols. Those negotiations are actively going on. But I cannot say anything further about the whistleblower or what might come next on that particular issue. But it is a reminder that Trump ran on lowering your costs, making America healthy again, and no new foreign wars. He carried out a striking military action against Venezuela and has moved a large flotilla into place to take action against Iran. Many of us are holding our breath to see what next military adventure he might undertake.
Senator,
I should just clarify very quickly that this was a call between two foreign nationals discussing a person close to President Trump. Eugene.
Senator, you wrote a Time op-ed. Congress must fight back against America isolationism. Over the last 2 weeks, you write, several of our oldest, closest allies have taken steps to hedge their bets and distance themselves from the United States. The result, America has become more isolated in a dangerous world. In that dangerous world, why do you think your everyday American should care about foreign policy? Because it is sometimes, it feels like a conversation for a different day. But why is it so urgent right now for the American people?
There's two reasons, Eugene, and thanks for the question. You know, first is when we send enormous numbers of our soldiers, sailors, and Marines overseas to engage in military adventurism, it can end badly. We spent 20 years in a war in Iraq and Afghanistan that was expensive, that did not ultimately make us safer. Understandably, after 9/11, the United States took prompt action against the Taliban in Afghanistan to try and ultimately to succeed in taking down the leadership of al-Qaeda that had attacked the United States. But it morphed into a 2-decade-long, multi-trillion-dollar war. So when Donald Trump runs around the world threatening military action, and my article, my editorial, focuses on his threats to take Greenland by force from a NATO ally, and his use of tariffs against our NATO allies to coerce them into giving up Greenland, it also has economic consequences. Not just how much we're spending on keeping a flotilla off the coast of Venezuela and sending another one off the coast of Iran, but, as I mentioned in my editorial, Eugene, our closest allies in Europe are now hedging their bets economically, so that if Trump continues to throw tariffs against this country or that country, they have options. They're opening up new relationships with China, which are not good for us. And the tariffs he's imposed on things from groceries and produce to plywood and wallboard are raising the costs of food and housing. His tariff campaign to coerce our allies has real costs, daily costs, that impact how much Americans are paying for groceries and housing.